This is video clip 7.2, Non-Formal Adult Education, a remix done by Diana Fletcher. What is non-formal education? According to Coombs and Ahmed, quote, "It is any organized, systematic educational activity carried on outside the framework of the formal system to provide selected types of learning to particular subgroups in the population, adults as well as children." End quote. Non-formal education became part of the international discourse on education policy in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Educational growth and economic growth at this time were not aligned. During the 70s, in much of the Third World, non-formal education became a more frequent alternative for adult learning. The characteristics of non-formal adult education, according to Coombs and Ahmed, 1974, are as follows. This education must be separate from state-sanctioned schooling and is pre-planned and systematic and leads learners towards a specific goal. This type of education does not typically lead to formalized credentials. Non-formal education can be led by someone with more experience, perhaps an advanced student, a volunteer, or an adult educator. The learning in a non-formal environment is intentional from the learner's point of view. And also, no particular educational or professional qualifications are required for participation in non-formal learning. Examples of non-formal adult education may be provided in the workplace and through the activities of civil society organizations. Programs can include literacy and basic education for adults, political and trade union education, and various kinds of educational work linked with developmental initiatives, including agricultural, extension, and health education. Non-formal education can also be provided through organizations or services that have been set up to complement formal approaches, such as arts, music, and sports classes. A significant portion of non-formal adult education and training in Canada is work-related. Can you think of an example of non-formal adult education that occurs in the workplace? Communities of Practice, or COP, is an example of non-formal learning. Wenger Train defined communities of practice as the following. Communities of practice are groups of people who share a concern or a passion for something they do and learn how to do it better as they interact regularly. There are three characteristics of a community of practice as defined by Wenger Train. The first is domain, which is a common interest that connects and holds together the community. The second characteristic of a community of practice is community. A community is bound by the shared activities they pursue, for example, meetings, discussions, events, which are all related to their common domain. The third characteristic of a community of practice is practice. Members of a community of practice are practitioners. What they do informs their participation in the community, and what they learn from the community affects what they do. To provide a real-life example of a community of practice in action, I have chosen to use a personal example that is work-related. I work for a nonprofit agency that coordinates monthly meetings for employment professionals. During these monthly meetings, they come together to share information and discuss common issues they face in their daily work environment. Their work environment includes assisting clients to find employment, as well as working with employers to help place clients looking for work. Examining the domain in our real-life example of a community of practice, we see that the employment professionals are providing government-funded employment services for various agencies. They also work with job seekers as well as various employers within the community. In examining our real-life example of a community of practice in action, the community characteristic is the monthly meetings and networking opportunities for this group. They also share information between meetings through an email distribution system. The practice characteristic is their work in the community where they can spot trends and common issues, which they then bring back to the group to develop strategies to handle these issues. This real-life example of a community of practice meets all the characteristics of non-formal education. It takes place in the workplace. It does not lead to formalized credentials. It's led by a person with experience. The learning is intentional, and you do not need educational or professional qualifications to participate in this group.